All right. What are we doing today?
I don't know. I'm just winging it.
That's what I'm supposed to do. You're not supposed to wing it.
I'm
You're
not.
supposed to no, you're supposed to have your I'm trying really hard not to swear. You're supposed to have your four-letter word together, not me.
Okay. My
Yeah, I
stuff
don't do
together.
that.
All right. Well, cool.
I
I
need a
guess
haircut. Can we do a haircut live on the live stream?
I'm not there, so I can't do that. Although if you've got like, something to do it with, sure, if you want to.
Yeah, I got
So
stuff. I got stuff.
cool.
So
All right.
this is the
Well,
kickoff, man. This
yeah.
is the kickoff. This is the very first the 2025 CISSP Mentor Program. This is the 16th year. I'm super jacked because you get a real kick out of helping people, and this is one of the ways, we get to help people. Um, we're not going to be politically correct. We're not going to be perfect, but one of the things you're going to get from us is our best, right? We want you to succeed. I've been in this industry forever. I'm old. You can see the bags under my eyes. Uh, the beard comes from pressure. It's like Play-Doh. You ever had that Play-Doh game where you push the thing and yeah, this is what happens. It's funny, man. I've asked a lot of people over the years what you want to be in this industry. And you know what the most common answer is? When they progress in their career, what do they want to be?
I want to be a CISO.
A CISO. Yeah. And you know what I usually say back?
Why?
Yeah. Why? Why in the hell do you want to do that? But that's a good question. As a CISO, there are good CISOs, I think, then there are CISOs who aren't very good. I think the best CISOs are the best leaders. The best CISOs are the ones that are in the game for the right reasons, which is to serve the organizations that they work for. Hey, we have a surprise visitor.
Yeah.
One of my favorite people on the planet,
Yeah.
but I don't see his face yet.
No, I saw he was in chat, so I figured we'd get him in here.
Yeah.
There he
Oh,
is.
hey, what's
Hey,
up?
Ron.
You have a haircut. You don't need a haircut. I need a haircut. I don't hear him. All right. Well, you're leading this thing. So
Yep.
do people know you, Brian?
I think some people do. I was here last year. I ran a couple of optional sessions. So I'll give it real quick. Ladies and gentlemen, hello. I'm Brian Kelly from FR Secure, which Ron, I think you're giving us some feedback.
Took me a minute to figure out how to use all of this new technology.
That's right.
I get you, man. So I'm an FR Secure employee at this point in time.
Oh,
And
we're
I'm
getting
information security
feedback.
Got rid of it a long time ago.
We're getting feedback, I think, on you right now, Ron.
So,
but we're good now. All right. So, Brian, who are you and what are you doing here?
So I'm an information security consultant with FR Secure. And that is why I'm here is because I had a job opportunity with FR Secure for the IR team a long time ago. And when I went through that process, I didn't get the job. And this was through a friend who is currently, he was working at FR Secure then, he's working at FR Secure now. And he said, hey, we've got this job, you'd probably be a good fit. And so I went through the job interview process, I talked to a bunch of people, and I think basically the story is it came down to me and one other person. And my lack of training and experience and the role is why I didn't get the job. But they're like, hey, you're really cool. We like you. You fit our culture. So let us know if anything changes. And I'm like, well, dang, I really wanted that job. So I'm like, what could I have done differently? And that was right about the time that a lot of people were holed up inside. This was early 2021. And the mentorship program was just starting. I'm like, hey, I'm going to get my CISSP because I like this information security thing. And so I did. I went through the program, got my sat for the test, did it, and I reached back out to his pinky, and I'm like, hey man, I know we talked about the job. You had said, you guys like me, and to let you know if anything changes. And so I got my CISSP. Does that help me and all? He's like, cool. We don't have any job openings right now. And I'm like, dang. And so he's like, but we have another group that might, and you might actually fit well over there. So that he sent me over to Megan, who Megan is awesome, and she's also been through this program as well.
Yeah.
And that's how I got here. And so I went through that interview process and I eventually started on FR Secure. And then why I'm really here today is because I got so much out of the program. I'm like, I had the opportunity to volunteer and help. At that point, it's just basically doing mod work. And so through the years, my role's gotten a little bit bigger each time, and now I'm here as the MC. Um, and that's why I'm here, because I want to help everybody else because I got so much out of the program and I like helping people. So what's the best way to do than just be here and do what I can.
That's cool, man. Yeah, one of the when we had talked about, in one of our meetings in prepping for this, we talked about you stepping up and taking the MC thing, which is more like I think a squirrel herder. Certainly when me and Ryan are here, and Ryan's in the background right now. Ron's a little more disciplined, but I have my issues for sure. But when I had said that in the meeting, it was like the next day I got a text from one of your peers who told me how excited you were that you get to do this. And I was like, hell yeah, man. It's times like that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about the CISSP Mentor Program is there's so much joy in giving to people. I mean, maybe it comes more with age, but there's no dollar amount you could give me that would replace the joy I get from helping people. I mean, I look disheveled and, well, kind of homeless, maybe, but badass. You got your tattoos. You think you're all tough, but inside, I'm a softie, man. I really love helping people. I love seeing people succeed. Nothing makes me happier. And now at 35 years in the industry, you take on more of a role of coach and less of a role of player. I don't have the energy that I used to have to be a player. But as a coach in this part of my career, it's been really exciting to kind of be behind the scenes, helping CISOs be better CISOs. And it's not that they're bad CISOs. I'm not in the weeds with you. And I get to talk to lots of different CISOs. So I get to steal good ideas from other people and bring them to you. I'm not emotionally tied to the job like CISOs are. The best decision making comes from a balance of logic and emotions. And when you're all bottled up in that emotion thing as a CISO, it's hard to make tough decisions. I think good ones anyway. So I'm happy you're here, man. I'm happy to be coach. What do we got in store? What are we talking about?
So, as you know, basically today's focus is the introduction and the kickoff of the mentorship program for this session, this year. I don't know what we're calling it this time around. So, as you put together in your video, that we're changing the way we do things this year. At least from the time when I did it, and before that, it was here's live sessions twice a week, 2 hours each one. We're gonna crank through a bunch of these slides and very quickly. And I think that has been noted is here you're throwing a bunch of information at people. Let's take a little bit of a step back and be a little bit more interactive. Let's bring that mentorship aspect back to it. And so I think that's on like today. That's kind of what we're here to talk about. And I'm guessing that some of this is going to be a little bit of a rehash for those of you who have already seen the video so far. But that's kind of what we're going to be doing through these sessions. Is we're going to be talking about what was in those recorded videos, and we're going to be taking questions and talking about those. And for those of you who are here in YouTube or in the LMS Thinkific, which is learn.frsecure.com, ask questions. So I will try my best to wrangle your questions and get them out here as I'm doing that. But please note that I am trying to look at both Discord and YouTube at the same time here. So I'm probably going to miss information. If you guys want, you guys can always DM me information and I'll try and get it there. Just don't, be careful with what you DM. I don't respond to things that aren't proper. So
Proper.
just say note on that one.
It's got to be proper.
Yeah, please be proper.
So the reason behind, and so two things that just kind of came to mind. One is, I recorded that video. I'm not a very good planner or time manager or manager in general, I'm not good at a lot of things, but That video I had to record from a hotel because I didn't plan ahead and I was on a cruise last week. So I'm probably going to re-record that video because I think I can make it a little better quality, which leads to the two reasons why I wanted to switch from the traditional format that we've done the last 15 years to a new format this year. One was we wanted to do this program continually, meaning you don't have to wait every year until April for us to kick this thing off. We'll still kick them off in April, but if we record the lesson content and the lectures, you can have those available all the time. And then I also wanted, we call it the CISSP Mentor Program, but it was more of like a CISSP training program. I mean, there was some mentorship in there for sure when we share our own experiences through stuff, but watch the lecture, on your own time when it's convenient for you, because there's also a huge time commitment for people, away from family, away from, stuff. And then we'll use this time to share our experiences, to share the mentoring pieces. And from an instructor standpoint, it's actually a little bit, I think, less time consuming for us, because once the content is recorded, we can just do Wednesday nights forever, really. Just keep cycling through the same content over and over again.
So one thing I did want to note that was in the intro video. So you had mentioned that potentially there's the option to take the test online. So I just wanted to note that as far as I know that there isn't. We've actually had
I don't know.
two friends, coworkers that have just recently gone through the exam, both on site. So, and because unlike some other exams, they're a lot more particular about the checking identities on that. Like quite literally, they'll do a fingerprint, they'll do a palm scan. When I went to go do my test, they actually made me take off my glasses and they put them on this little round table thing and looked at them to make sure that I had no way of cheating by whatever on my glasses. So for those of you guys who are going to be doing the test, just note, they will actually make you pull out your pockets to make sure you have nothing in your pockets.
These are my meta glasses.
Yeah, you're not allowed to wear those.
No, I could record what's going on right now.
Cool. I want to see that posted. But so just be aware that is one of the things that they do when they take the test. For instance, my most recent certification that I did was a PCI certification. They just said, let's check your ID and go ahead and go take the test. They didn't do any of that other stuff. I had to have my ID and my passport to do the CISSP. So they do require a lot more verification of who you are. So I just want to note, so one of the questions that I did pull out here, which if you guys are going through and pulling out questions, once again, if I don't get your questions, please let me know. The adaptive test. Evan, you didn't take the adaptive test. I know that you did it on like a Scantron.
We had it paper.
Yep. Ron, I'm guessing you're probably the same. So the adaptive test for the CISSP is basically you go in, you get 100 to 150 questions. There is no way to mark a question and go back to other questions. You have to answer that question that's right there in front of you, and then you move on to the next one. And what happens is, as you answer those questions, it looks at your answers and tries to adapt to the way you're answering them. Now, they don't give a lot of information on how they do this because they don't want you to game the system. But basically, the thought process is that you're going through, you're answering those questions and it's identifying areas where you might not be strong. And it's trying to verify that you are good in those areas. So maybe if you get something wrong, it might give you something else in that area to see maybe if there's another aspect that you guys know. Also, the test goes from 100 to 150 questions. One of the guys that just did it last week, he had 100 questions. And once you hit submit after that 100 question, it's like, hey, you're done. Thank you. For me, I went to 101. And I won't lie, when I went to question 101, I was like, shoot, this isn't good. I didn't hit it at the 100 mark. But after question 101, it's like, hey, you're done. Cool. Thank you. Go ahead and leave. So just a note on that for the adaptive test questions. So let's see. And
And we'll
hopefully I
cover this
answered.
stuff. We'll cover this stuff again
Oh
too
yeah, we will.
at the end. So what you're going to see from this point until like what, session 12 or something, will be lecture and content and instruction. And then we'll prepare for the exam, the last two sessions, the last two live mentor sessions, and we'll cover this again. So if you missed any of this, you'll be all right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. How long ago did you take the exam, Brian?
2021. So 4 years ago.
What year is it now?
2025.
Okay. As soon as I get used to the year, they change it on me.
They tend to do that yearly.
It's not cool.
Um,
And Ron,
so
how long ago was it for you?
2001,
Damn. He's
a while
old.
ago, and I never plan on taking it ever again.
No,
So I love
he's
doing
old.
this.
He's old people.
Experienced.
so
Yeah, and old. I mean, you got to call it the way it is, you know. You are experienced for sure and beautiful,
Oh, likewise.
but old. Still. Me too.
so
Fascinating that so many are focused on, how do we survive through the test, when really you also need to understand the material. And as Evan, you already put it, we're going to spend a lot of time covering the material with the weekly videos. I also want to give a shout out to the past year videos. I mean, we have a lot of content we recorded. I mean, Evan, you've been doing this for what, 10, 15 years?
Yeah,
So if
this
you
is
haven't
16.
done so already, check out the YouTube channel, the FR Secure YouTube channel for past year's content. One of the things, there was a question that came up, is how often does ISC2 change the content? Every few years. I still have books, though, 10, 15 years old, and so much of it is still relevant today. So just because something's old does not mean it's meaningless. So even if you don't have the current edition of the ISC2 study guide, any of the variants out there, a lot of it. I mean, networking, IPv6 has been around 20 plus years. We're still trying to figure it out. That's my 2 cents.
Well, that's the cool thing about most of the content is fundamental, foundational stuff. I mean, it doesn't change, right? It'll always be this way. The things that change are the things, like the technology stuff has changed, right? Cloud is much more of an emphasis than it was when you and I took the exam. We didn't call it the cloud. It was still the cloud, but we just called it network, basically. So yeah, good stuff.
Now we're seeing a lot more emphasis about AI at the RSAC conference next week. Like half the sessions have the word AI in them. How much will AI help you? Well, you still need to do your own independent analysis and thought. It's like Wikipedia 20 years ago, good for basic knowledge, but I still don't trust it 100%.
Yeah. There's a
there's
good
been
question right there. Learning for fun. Says, hi, Evan, just a quick question. How does FR Secure differs from other boot camp aside it is free? I think one, we take more time, right? Boot camps are typically a week, and it's a deluge of information. And then you usually take the exam immediately afterwards because it's fresh. Whereas this, I think, it's a little bit longer. The emphasis here isn't as much on just passing the CISSP. It's also making you a good information security person. Those are two different things. They don't have, I mean, they can be together, but there's lots of CISSPs that I wouldn't trust with my network in it at all. So it goes well beyond just passing the exam. I would say that's the biggest difference. And it is free.
So along the thought of the change that happened last year towards June or so. So there is a new book. We are using the new version of the book. I know it was mentioned before that if you still have one of the older versions of the book, they are still valid. But you will need to supplement some of your learning to cover some of those new topics that have been covered or added to. Which hopefully the goal here is that we will address those or help you guys address those. There's also tons and tons and tons of free learning resources online. Like at some point we'll get into that. Like I will talk about the resources I used. I've been quizzing my friends and coworkers that have recently passed it. Hey, what have you guys used? What do you guys see? What can we suggest here for you guys as well? Because I'm not sitting for the exam again at this point in time, so my finger is not always on the pulse of what's the best app to use or what's the best testing materials or practice tests to use. So that's the goal. So to answer the question out there, there is already a new version of the CBK, and that's the one that we are focusing on right now that we're using
What does
here.
CBK stand for?
Common Book of Knowledge, or
There you
is
go.
it
Body.
body? There you go. Thank you. I was going to
But-
say I always get it wrong.
Because that's
one of
another thing
those.
I'm going to try to do a lot in this particular go around is try to explain a lot of the acronyms we use. I mean, there's so many damn acronyms all the time. And yeah, I just assume that other people know the language I'm speaking, but man, it's crazy how many people don't. You sort of take that stuff for granted, but it's a lot of this too is trying to meet people where they're at. I've, I'm at the end time of my career, basically, right? I mean, it's now for me, it's more about sharing wisdom. It's more about sharing experiences. There's other people that are just starting out in their career. There are some people here that, won't even be taking the CISSP this time around. They're just, kind of getting their feet wet a little bit. I actually have two sons, I think, that are in this cohort. One's transitioning from a police officer. He doesn't have any information security experience, so that'll be fun to see kind of what he gets out of this. And then another son, he's got a couple of years experience, but it's been fun to watch him kind of navigate. I try not to be that helicopter father, but I remember when I have another son who's actually works at FR Secure. He's a penetration tester. And I remember the first time he called me and he's like, I know what TCP IP is. And I'm like, what is it? And he shared with me and I'm like, oh, we have such a deeper connection now. It's like, so it's anyway, I think the big thing about a lot of this stuff too, you'll find that a lot of the material is pretty dry. It's pretty dry. It's very broad. It doesn't go deep really anywhere. So you don't get the CISSP as a specialization certification. You get the CISSP as a fundamental, foundational certification. And I say that because in any part of the content, you could go really deep. Those are specialized skills, and that's not what the CISSP is. So it's very broad, which can also be overwhelming because information security is a very, very broad subject. I mean, it covers a whole bunch of stuff. And some of that stuff you may never have heard of. You may have experience in like these areas of information security, but no experience in the others. And even if you wanted to be just a penetration tester, and I say just a penetration tester, even if you just wanted to be, a technical resource in this industry, it's still a good idea for you to take or understand the CISSP because it helps put your work into context with all the other work that goes on with information security. And I know enough from my own experience that the best decisions I make come from context. The worst decisions I make is where I lack context. So even if you're not planning on being a CISSP or being a CISO, you want to be an analyst, you want to be whatever you're called to be, I would still encourage you to finish this so that you can put your work, your piece of the pie into context with all the other pieces. It makes you better.
So I want to underscore that in the way that there is so much broad material on the exam that you guys need to know and need to memorize. So the team over here at FR Secure that I work on, there's 12-ish, 15 of us. And within that group, all of our focus is very similar. The main focus is the vCISO group and consulting. But within that, we've got like 5 or 6 different other specialties that we divide up among each other. Like, so for instance, I do a lot of SOC and PCI work. I do vendor risk management work. Then we have others that are very involved in HIPAA. We have others in CMMC. I won't lie, I'm not huge on policies and procedures. So when we get really deep in policies and procedures, generally I'm running it by other people being like, hey, am I looking at this the right way? Because my background where I grew up on the technical side of things, uh, documentation, policies and procedures was always the thing that you did last, if you ever did it at all. So I was much more hands-on on things, but that's just to say that there's so much here that you're going to need to memorize for the test. And there's a lot of areas as that we go through this where you guys are probably going to hear me say, this is not something that I experience on a daily basis or even weekly. But it's still information that you need to know for the test because it's part of it. Um, and I think that like within FR Secure, there's the vast majority of the roles we have, everybody could probably potentially use it, the certificate, but there's such a huge wide range of roles that it's used for within that.
Well,
Sure.
Ryan here, I just wanted to interject. So as I've been working on AI, one of the things that's actually been helpful to me is some of the foundations of the CISSP. They're still applicable to the future, right? The way that we describe risk, the critical thinking skills. And I think that's the number one thing I would encourage everybody is as you go through this, really try to leverage those critical thinking skills because not only are they going to help you be a better security practitioner, but they are absolutely required for any kind of AI enabled future. So I'm really excited. I'm glad to be here and support in any way I can. Feel free to ask questions when you see me around. But I just want to pop in and say that a lot of the stuff that will be, hey, we don't do that way, or this is just a kind of a relic in the book, might actually be applicable in a different context. So to Evan's point, might actually be applicable in a new context applied to AI.
Mhm. For sure. For sure.
Exactly. If you don't mind me jumping in, so often we see folks going after the shiny object, emerging technologies, AI, and they completely miss fundamentals. AI, a lot of it is about software development principles and data. Where are you getting your data from? Synthetic data may not necessarily work. So, do you have a good data governance structure? Do you know what data you have and what you're building into your AI structures? So, yeah, fundamentals, fundamentals, fundamentals. I'm going to preach that to my dying day.
So a
Right.
really good metaphor to go along with that, and I'm gonna butcher this in some way, but Dave Tuckman, one of my coworkers, told me this about 2 weeks ago. He's like, compare building policies and procedures and such to a city. Would you want to build a city and not have any laws and rules? Or do you just want to build that city and let everybody go wild and then try and implement that later? So once again, the same with the fundamentals, getting all of that piece in place for you and having it documented, which honestly, like that was a crazy sort of thing for me to think about in my role of like, holy cow, that is so on point. That metaphor, that it honestly, it's like I need to rethink some things of the way that some of the engagements that I'm working on, because you know that's not always something that I've prioritized, and it's like that's the reason why. So
Right. Yeah. And I use the analogy a lot too of like, professional sports. Like if you ever watched like an NFL football practice, they're doing the same drills that we did in high school. Fundamentals, fundamentals, fundamentals. And it's not until you get a real solid muscle memory around the fundamentals do you go after, these specialized drills and specialized skills. It's the same thing. I mean, if you want to be the best you can be in information security, you'll never skip the fundamentals. Because another truth is, something that's insecure at the core will always be insecure. You just continue to put, Band-Aids on bullet wounds, lipstick on the pig. Take a firewall, for instance, right? You'll never be able to make up for lack of egress filtering on a firewall without implementing egress filtering on a firewall. Yet, how many companies do you know of have implemented egress filtering on their firewall correctly?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Right. So, it becomes like you can make an incredibly good living just doing the fundamentals, never specializing in anything. there are days, when I've had discussions with my own executive leadership team, I'm like, I can't believe people pay us for this. It's just basic stuff. Like, you need to have an asset inventory. What? Yeah. I mean, it's really difficult to secure. I mean, you can get lucky, but it's really difficult to secure things that you don't know you have. I mean, maybe, but yeah, an asset. So it's just for the people that are newer in this industry, fundamentals, don't skip it, because there's such a, not an urge, but I don't know, people go too fast. Yeah. I mean, we continue to adopt new technology way faster than our ability to use it responsibly. And so the problem just gets worse and worse until you have a good security person that can come in and say, oh, hold up, let's get our head around this. Let's implement the fundamentals without restricting the business's ability to make money. If you do that, you're going to be looking for another job. But, rather than us implementing new technology after new technology after new technology, making the environment more and more and more complex, complexity is the worst enemy of security. Let's hold up a second and maybe get better use out of what we already have and get rid of some of the things we don't need. In doing that, I'm reducing the attack surface. Those are systems I don't need to configure securely anymore. I don't have to worry about access control because the systems aren't there anymore. We were never using them. It was a waste of money. So, that's a win-win. And if you struggle with getting, time with the board of directors, they speak the language of business is accounting. So if you can save a whole bunch of money and reduce risk at the same time and probably make the company more efficient, like they're going to love you at the board. Then they invite you to a whole bunch of stupid meetings you don't want to go to anymore.
So I'm gonna
golf outings.
I'm gonna pull us back a little bit and talk about some fundamentals to get out there for those of us joining us, and if this is your first time. So there was a comment that was asked about the videos and such. So it was already mentioned before, the recorded sessions are going to be posted to Thinkific, which is you access that through learn.frsecure.com. You guys should have gotten an email with a link in it. If not, we have it in Discord. If you give me a moment, I can throw it in chat. So if you guys don't have access to that, it is tied to your Eventbrite sign up that you guys did. So whatever email address that you use there is the same address that is going to be used for that login. You may have to just reset your password to get access to it. I've seen that. But if you are having issues with it, please direct message me in Discord saying, hey, I'm not able to access Thinkific, and I'll need that email address so that we can make sure that we have it. The second piece, well, we covered the book already. I do want to note, so there was a couple questions that I saw pop up, and Ron, you might have already covered this, but the when do you go for a CISSP, or does it make sense, like say if you're early on in your cybersecurity career? Which Evan, you might have some information on this, but what I want to get that out there is that generally the CISSP is a management level certificate that you're probably, well, you're required to have 5 years of experience to get the certification. So if you're ever looking at a job resume and it's a entry level position and they want you to have a CISSP, that's a little off because it's not an entry level certificate. There is the CC put out by ISC squared as well, which is more of an entry level certificate. I believe it's still free at this time. I haven't seen otherwise, but I haven't looked recently. So if you guys are looking for something like that, yeah.
There's a maintenance fee you have to pay.
Gotcha.
It's a lot lower cost than most others, and it's quite fundamental, covering a lot of the basics.
Yep. So, and just a note for the CISSP to sit for the exam, I believe it's $750 just to take the exam. The discussion has come up a couple times about what is it? Exam assurance, or they have a term for it. Basically, if you don't pass the exam the first time, you can take it again within a certain time period, and it's like an extra $150 or something like that they tack onto it. Don't quote me on those prices. I don't know exactly what they are. So it's worth looking into because it is an expensive exam, and is very involved. So you want to make sure that you're prepared for it before you go and sit for it. Let's see. So before I move on to other questions I've seen pop up here, do you guys have anything to add on to that aspect of the program here or the CISSP?
The aspect of like the exam or the certification itself?
Just yeah, the sort of level of the certifications. So for instance, does it make sense for me to take or to go for the CISSP?
You do need experience to get through it. A lot of the questions are experience based. Not only do you need to understand the material, but how you apply it. Many of the questions, as we discussed earlier, with computer adaptive testing, what they are doing is looking to make sure you really understand the material based on scenarios. And many of the scenarios are quite lengthy. So just because we say you don't have to have experience to sit for the CISSP, you really do to be able to survive it.
Yeah.
Exam tip number whatever, let's say 501. When you do get one of those scenario-based questions, go down towards the bottom, read the question that they're actually asking you based off of all that information, and then go back and reread the scenario. So that way you know what they're going to be looking for when you're looking at that question. So
yeah, question Warren B. Does the 5 years experience need to be exclusively in a security focused role? No, it does not. You just need to be professional experience in 2 of the 8 domains. So,
and I want to jump on that because we have a lot of folks here who are transitioning into cybersecurity, like your sons, you mentioned, Evan. That experience, whether you worked in other types of security, worked in finance, manufacturing, all of that is very valuable because it's about risk management. How do we make sure we're balancing those threats? How do we make sure we can do our job? How do we make sure that our organization meets its mission, makes money? Comes back to understanding those risk fundamentals. Someone asked about fundamentals in chat. So there are a lot of cybersecurity fundamentals like the CIA, identity access management, networking, which we'll all cover through this course, but understanding what mission you're trying to meet.
True.
So we will get much more into test taking tips and what to look out for on the exam as we go through this. Like I said, that was 501 of the exam tips because there's so many of them that we'll get through. At some point, I'll probably relay what like sort of my build up to the exam was and what I did to prepare for it. And then also, like I said, those who've recently passed it, I'll get questions and answers from them of like, what'd you do? What did you look at? What is your takeaways from that? So,
one thing I think be helpful for everybody, learn your learning style. Figure out what your learning style is. The better you understand how you take in information, you'll be able to kind of narrow your resources. We're going to give you some great resources here, but some people are visual learners, some people are auditory. Your learning style can change over time too. So if you maybe think you know what it is, it might still be worth going back and checking. Because the better you understand your learning style, the more likely you'll be to retain the information as you study it.
Oh, look, we already got somebody doing ALE right there. Oh boy.
Oh, I was wondering how long it'd be till we started seeing that. But yep, that's something you need to know.
I'm thinking, you know what I'm thinking about doing this year? I was just I went and got dog food earlier today. And on the way, I was like, how do I make this more fun for people? You know what I mean? Because it is dry. I mean, I've been through it too many times and it's still dry. But I'm thinking about creating a contest. And I haven't really figured out all the details of the contest yet, but it's going to be fun. And then maybe like the winner of the contest, we can hang out in Mexico together. I'll fly you and your people down here and we'll go do stuff.
Yes, I was trying to think of ways that we can do that. there's something that we have that we might be able to use. I just have to see if it
Oh no,
will.
this is one of those things. It's going to be some harebrained, crazy ass idea, man.
Oh,
It's
cool.
not going to be anything you're going to be able to help me with because it's going to come. It's going to be some like, yeah, it's going to be crazy, but it'll be a lot of fun because I'm thinking of just like random questions to, not questions, but random tasks to draw out the content that we covered. You know what I mean? But random. They'll seem random, but they'll also be very applicable. Because one of the things we've talked about, you know, over the years, many, many times is information security at this level, the fundamentals, the basics, which you will learn. These are not specialized skills. These are life skills. They actually are life skills, right? So just like, you know, I'm the CEO of FR Secure. I'm not anymore, but say I was. I'm a CEO of my house, of my family, right? My job is, you know, at work would be to protect people at work. Here it's to protect my family, right? You've got physical controls like doors, locks, camera surveillance, if you've got it, you know, those types of things. And you got to take situational awareness into account, you know, where I'm at, the threats, the vulnerabilities, right? It's the same sort of risk management. It just almost comes like second nature because you can relate to it all the time. Take those same types of concepts and expand upon them and apply them to a company that you're consulting or a company that you're working for, right? We've got technical controls. I've got a firewall on my network here. I've got users on my network. My users on this network actually matter a little bit more than the users on other networks because this is my family. You know, I've been asked over the years many times, you know, what keeps you up at night? The only thing that keeps me up at night is the loss of one of my children's innocence. I can get information, you know, back. I can change things, but I can't get my daughter's innocence back. So you've got the technical controls, you know, strong passwords, you know, all those other things. And then you've got the administrative controls, like what are the rules? That's what governance is. And that's, you know, the next session that's coming that I'll be recording here really soon is, you know, governance. What are the rules for the game here? You know, and if we don't establish rules for the game, well, then it is chaos, right? Then people do things that you didn't intend them to do. And you have, you know, expectations. It's not risk management at all. It's actually risk ignorance, right? So the same principles that I'm taking here, you know, at my house, you know, I use all the time, you know, in my professional career, just in different context.
A critical point. A lot of folks wonder, how do I gain experience in cybersecurity? You know, or what entry-level positions are there? Should become a security operations center or SOC analyst. I mean, start with your local community, church, community group, you name it. Senior center, go and help them. Schools,
Yeah.
so many groups need help in improving their cybersecurity posture. You can go and volunteer and then ask for them to be a reference for you. Great way. And then practice at home. Develop your own home
Yeah,
lab. That's
absolutely.
dirt cheap. Yeah, find an old computer, run Linux on it, and start playing and experimenting. Develop your own home network with some old equipment. You don't need brand new stuff to learn.
Mm-mm. No, especially the fundamentals, right?
Hmm.
I mean, TCP/IP is still TCP/IP. They didn't change.
Yep.
Which is good for somebody who's old like me, because the same stuff I learned in the late 80s is still very much applicable today. What else you got for us, Mr. Brian?
I do want to mention one in here. It's just a comment about, so the cost of the exam, it is high. For those of you that might be working in something that's similar to security roles, check with where you work, because sometimes they will offer programs where they'll pay for something like this where you pay for the exam. So it's not everywhere, but it's worth at least looking into. That's something, and so I come from a technical background. So pretty much everywhere that I worked at, they had that. If I was taking, say, a technical certification, they'd at least do something for me, whether it's pay for the exam or pay for classes, or at least something along those lines. One job I even had, they were going to pay partially for college as well. So it's worth looking into for where you're at to do that. And also, like it was mentioned, these are fundamental items that we're going to be going through here. So even if you're not going to be going for a CISSP, it's worth knowing these items. And also, say, for instance, there's a lot of crossover between all of these certifications, the security certifications, where the things that you're going to learn here are going to be applicable there as well. It might not be 100% in line, or they might have their own specific little sort of idiosyncrasies between them. But it's the fundamental knowledge that you have here that you're going to gather that's going to help you. So I do want to point that out. So
For sure. We're going to name the contest Evans Squirrel Contest.
Awesome.
It's going to run
it.
It's going to run between now and the end of this. What do you call this again? CISSP Mentor Program. And then, yeah, like the winner will do something like fly you and your spouse, significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, dog, fly you guys down here, and we'll spend a week down here, which has been awesome. We've had over 215 people.
I can vouch for that one. I've been there, and it's an amazing place. So if you if you ever get a chance, or if you can win that contest, go for it, because it's amazing.
We can do all kinds of sweet ass security stuff.
Yep.
Stuff I can't teach you in any recording.
All right. So another question, and sorry, this is going way back in YouTube chat. There was a little bit of discussion about picking the best answer on the exam. So that is one thing that you are going to find, is that as you're looking at those test questions and you're trying to figure out what the answer is, some of them, more than one, might look correct to you, and you have to pick the best answer. So think like Amanda was probably mentioned already before, at least in chat, if this is a management certification where, like, if you get the option between, oh, you're going to go do this, or you're going to delegate responsibility for someone to go do this, you're the manager. You're delegating that responsibility to somebody. You're not the one doing it. So that is something to look out for. We will get deeper on that when we do the practice exams, but that's just a little nugget for you guys.
Nuggets.
Yep.
Like chicken nuggets.
I'm hungry, man. Don't mention food.
Chicken nuggets.
It's not fair.
It's not fair. Yeah, I had dinner.
Let's see. So
Ron,
another question.
Did you have dinner, Ron?
Finally unmute. Not yet. So
What are you gonna have for dinner?
I got Chipotle. So
nice. All right. What do you think you're going to do for dinner, Brian?
I know what I'm going to do for dinner, because so I'm the one that's supposed to keep people on track, and now I'm going to go off topic. So
yeah,
I was grocery shopping.
Good, man.
I was grocery shopping.
More personable. When you just talk about content all the damn time, it's boring. You got to make it entertaining. All right. Okay. What's dinner?
So I was grocery shopping last Saturday, and it was, not fairly early, but it was early enough in the morning where they had stuff like on markdown type area, right? And we were picking up steaks because our plan was to make some steaks during the week at some point. And they had a 6-pound prime rib on sale for $23. And the original price on it was
6 pounds?
Yeah, 6 pounds. And the original price on it was $101, something like that. And I'm like, my wife and I are like, we can't pass this up. We have to get this. It's $23. Yeah. It was less expensive than the steaks that we were looking at. So we got a prime rib and we cooked it on Sunday. So I have leftover prime rib, which like probably make a sandwich out of it or something, or but yeah, that's my dinner.
Wild turkey. Somebody said wild turkey nuggets. That's awesome. I'm going to be smoking a pork butt.
Ooh.
Maybe after this class, I'll start it. Oh shoot, man, there was something you said that. Oh, another thing, and this isn't taught in the book, but that's part of what this mentoring thing is, right? It's the things that are in the book, it's academic when it's in a book, right? When you apply it, it makes it practical. And there's some things you'll find in the book that are more practical than others, right? Some of them are academic and they're meant to be academic. But there's also things that aren't even relevant to the CISSP, honestly, that a good mentor would share. Things like longevity in this industry. How do you make it this long without burning out? And the truth is, I have burned out. I've burned out numerous times, but you come back from that. But another thing that, mental health, right? We don't talk enough about mental health. It's like a taboo subject or something, or, the stigma really is, bullshit. And I swore, but I meant to there. You need to take care of yourself. So when you're studying for the exam, some people have anxiety, they have test taking anxiety. The way you deal with a lot of the mental health things is to confront it, embrace it, learn how to manage it. I'm an ADHD guy. You learn that ADHD is like a superpower, but it's also a curse. So you have people around you that keep you from the curse as much as possible. But there's certain things you can do with ADHD that you can't do if you don't have ADHD. And the way we would know that is to confront it, embrace it, understand it. So the same things with depression, suicide, not suicide, but that comes from a mental health thing. But those things should all be openly discussed and not condemned. We should be celebrated, for being honest with those things, because that also has a big parlay into our jobs as information security leaders.
So
We
I want to build on that.
We tell the truth.
Yeah.
It may not be the truth that you want to hear, but it's the damn truth. And that's how we have to deal with it. So anyway, go ahead, Ryan.
Sorry, man. I didn't mean it. ADHD, right? Totally didn't mean to interrupt you. It's it's just an excited utterance. I think as I've been working with the AI and looking at kind of how to model that security, going back to those fundamentals, going back to what are the things that create risk. What I found was the language most people were using wasn't a language of love. It was a language of hate. It was a language of anger. And so I'm thinking, how do you design a security control, like a practical security control, right? For a language machine, right? So as the old statesmen's, right, it's our job now, unfortunately, to try to figure out how to secure that new thing, because they did build it. It is here. And what I found was that if I approach it from a perspective of love and compassion, right, I got better results. And
right.
I say that to say, for the mental health piece, often under high stress, people don't take time to remind themselves that they're cool, that they matter, they're important, So if you're taking the test and you're struggling, be your own coach sometimes too. Like, it's okay to be your own coach. It's good to have mentors and coaches, but sometimes you got to tell yourself that you are, worthy and important. So
Yeah, and that's important part of the community too. That's why, we, keep it respectful in that Discord community. Hopefully, through this CISSP Mentor Program, you'll achieve what you set out to achieve, but then you'll also have these long-term, maybe friendships that you've generated, support groups, because we do need support. No matter how badass you think you are, how much you think, how awesome you are at security, you need support. I mean, we all do. There's a question here, do we have other hobbies? Can we answer that one, Brian? Because it's a question.
Of course. I'll allow it.
Nice. I have lots of hobbies. It depends on the day. Scuba diving, motorcycle riding, welding, geeking stuff, musician. I play a lot of piano mostly right now, but piano, guitar, lots of hobbies. How about you, Ron? What hobbies you got?
Mostly hanging out with my son, different sports, working out, anything to keep my body moving. When you get older, that's the key, because things just don't want to go. And hey, we have a Chris Foulon here. I just
That's
realized
right.
Chris, you
Chris,
snuck
these are
in.
all. How
I
you doing, Chris?
decided to drop in on this and say hi to everyone. Looking forward to another year of doing this, and thank goodness for Ryan, because I don't have cryptography this year.
I know. You know what you did get though, Chris?
What?
Security models.
Man, I could work with that. I'll make it
Oh
work.
man, that is the worst. I hate doing the security models. I have to. It's almost like you're just reading it. Yeah, but yeah, thank God you're here to do that. Usually,
That-
Brad
That
gets
and
that one.
compliance work is that pretty much the same, right?
Yeah, usually Brian gets that one, or not Brian. Brad. Brad's really happy he's not getting that one. I chose networking this time, which is awesome because it's my
You
jam.
do that every time.
I know that's right. I don't need the book to teach that one, which is cool. You know, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, Ryan, what hobbies do you have?
Blacksmithing, welding, Legos. Lately, walking the dog has been a newfound hobby.
Is that a
Living
hobby?
well, because I live in an apartment, so there's no
Uh,
like I have to take her out, and we went out a lot a few days ago. She had a bit of an upset tummy, so
all right.
I agree with Ryan there. I mean, I live in a townhouse, and um, sometimes my dogs tell me it's just time to go, get off the computer, step away, and that's usually at 5:30. You're like, your day's done. It's time to step away and give us attention. So I'm with the dogs right there.
All right. I
I,
got
I'd
5
add
dogs, and
in like
it's
a little
not even a
kind of
hobby. It's just a
acting.
way of life.
Yeah, I mean, it's something outside of work, right? Like it forces you to be in nature.
Right.
It forces you to be in nature, to be outside, and to step away from the screens.
Tyler paints 40K models. Yeah. We should do a training session down here.
Hey, sign me up sometime. I want
Gotta
to
get-
I want to scuba dive in Mexico.
You want to scuba dive?
Yeah, I love scuba diving. Growing up in the Caribbean, I got my PADI open water junior diver at 13, and um, I think the last time I scuba dived was when I got married, and that's about 12 years ago, way too long.
Yeah. When I got my rescue diver certification, I made sure I asked the instructor before I got it, does this mean I have to rescue people or can I choose? He said, you can choose. And I said, all right, then I'll get certified. That's awesome. And we got
Well,
another
it's
diver,
like a
Pat
security
Cosimo. We'll have to
professional.
do a CISSP Mentor Program dive trip.
Well, I mean, when you think of the fundamentals of scuba diving, it's all risk-based decisions. Just like being a CISSP, like you have the PADI
Mhm.
book that tells you what you're supposed to do, but sometimes in real life you have to adjust and make risk-based decisions.
And don't panic. That's
Yeah.
that's always the number one killer. It's not even the number one killer in scuba diving, but it's the number one killer in just about everything. And you know, the number one tip, have you ever been asked this, you guys? Have you ever been asked from a board of directors or a CEO or somebody, what's one thing? What's the number one thing I can do? And I'll share with you my answer because it also fits for diving. It fits for life. It fits for just about everything. But I'd be interested in your answers if they're different than mine. But my answer is always situational awareness. You know, you have to pay attention to what's going on around you. You know, that you'll pick up the threats that apply. You'll pick up the weaknesses. It's paying attention. And today, and that's why I think so many of the breaches and so many of the just shit that goes on in the world is lack of situational awareness. You know, people are on their phones all the time. They're busy and they're not paying attention.
Excuse me, did you say something?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Threat modeling, understanding what are the threats, what can bite you in the pork butt or other, and how will it, what is that? We'll get in a whole section on risk management, but it really does come back to impact and frequency of occurrence. It's not just likelihood. Like, I'm in Nebraska. What's the likelihood of a tornado in Nebraska? It's really easy, 100%. I did not time bound it. I did not give a location. So yeah, context, situational awareness, exactly, Evan.
Well,
That's like doing risk assessments and talking to people being here in California when we talk about, the physical issues that they might have or the physical emergencies. It's earthquakes and wildfires for this area, but other places it's tornadoes and such, and having to take that into account. We actually had a pretty good earthquake last week. So
Really?
yeah, it was a 5 something.
that's how you
This-
just back up your tabletops.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it was crazy because my phone went off. It was just sitting here buzzing on my desk, and I looked at it and I saw the alert and it said earthquake on it, and that's when I started feeling the shaking. It was very well timed.
Crazy. So the next content is chapter 1, 2. I think it was in the schedule, right? The schedule that was covered in the video, and it's also because that is supposed to be released tonight. It may not be released tonight, but it'll be released as soon as I can get to it. I'm almost done with the slides. It's like slide deck hell, PowerPoint hell, man. And the reason why we have to create the PowerPoints, you could just teach it. I mean, you could just teach it, right? Especially if you have experience in that area, you just take the topics and you can talk, about them. But you always want to have the students have a takeaway, have a study material from the teaching, right? So you need to create these slide decks. And that's really the part that I think takes the most time.
I mean, there's always the RTFM where you can just tell them to read the book, but
It's true.
adding context with the slide decks, with your story, is definitely always helpful.
Yeah.
I want to address a question here in chat. So studying sequentially. So a note on studying, and I think Ryan was the one that touched on it earlier. Studying is whatever works best for you. I know, for instance, for me, it is repetition. It is taking notes, writing them down, not typing them, actually using a pen or a pencil to do it, flashcards. One of the things that I built out was like charts of things, like especially in the networking portion, which is where I came from, but there was things that you need to know. And I would build out a chart and then I would flip the page over my notebook and I'd do it again. And then make sure that it was accurate or see what I missed. Okay, turn the page, do it again until when I knew that if I needed to know any of that information on the exam, that I could just write out that chart on that dry erase thing that they give you during the exam. And I could be like, okay, this is what I have, but it's identifying what is the best way to study. For instance, I went through like when I do flashcards, I would use that to identify, okay, this is an area, a domain that I'm not good in. These are the areas I need to study. Now I'm going to go back and read that part of the book again and reinforce that knowledge. Also, a note in Discord, I had mentioned it is when you're doing practice tests, some of those practice test providers, which you do need to do practice tests for this. That is not an if and or but. You have to do practice tests to be able to prepare or to prepare for the exam. Is hopefully when you're doing those tests, the provider that you're using will give you a breakdown of where you're strong and where you're not strong. So that'll give you, this is the domain you now need to go and study, or you need to do more practice tests, focus on this area. Maybe you need to go back, create flashcards or make more notes on it, or listen to whatever session we have here. Also, as a note, we have past sessions of the mentorship program on YouTube. So you can go and watch last year's session of particular areas, and it might cover things slightly differently for you as you're going through that. So and also as we go through, we will be identifying tons and tons and tons of resources for you that you guys can go and read, or different places. YouTube is an abundant place of learning material, which I used YouTube probably, I don't know, 80% for my studying outside of the FR Secure program. So there's a lot of information out there that you guys can get, a lot of it free as well.
I'm an auditory person, so I love podcasts and video series, even if they're playing in the background, to listen to it, because that's how I ingest best. I mean, I'm because I have a visual issue, and that's why I wear these glasses. Auditory is best for me, and writing would be the second best. When I did my CISSP, there was a book called The 11th Hour CISSP, and that's essentially the Cliff Notes version of CISSP. And during my time studying for it, my mentor was like, well, read this book, and then if you find any topics in here that you need to dive down into, then you can go over to the thicker one and dive into it or research it. But since this book is like the executive summary of the CISSP material, you can see where you're comfortable, where you're not, and then if you like to dive down deep in those areas, then you can do so, or review it. And that was how I did it. And that was before the CAT exams and the computer assisted testing exams, where they will find those areas that you're not good at and kind of just pummel you with it. It feels like it's a different testing approach, but you have to know how they ask the question in the CISSP way, which is different than how you might do it day to day, but it's part of understanding the risk approach, the textbook approach to it, so that you can share, well, this is what you should do in such a situation if you only wore one hat. But most of us wear many hats. I have one just like Brian that I wear from time to time. But yeah, that's my tip.
So there's a question that I think we should address from the aftermath, and it's, is this a who am I or a CISSP prep? When does the studying starts? Who wants to take that one?
It's both, right? The studying starts right away because you get to learn from Evan and Brian and Ryan and Ron from each of our experiences as to how we tackle the different topics and find the approach that kind of works best for you. Because Ron teaches professionally and kind of takes that deep dive into the technical. Ryan is all about like the what if and going down that road. Evan is, well, he's gray in the hair, so he's like, well, back in my day, this is how I did it.
Yeah,
So it's a
we had
little
to
bit
walk.
of
We had to
what's
walk
the
up
best
to
approach
school
for you.
uphill both ways, no shoes, in the snow, for sure. No, I think one of the things it is important. You know, some people are in a hurry, right? You're in a hurry. When does the studying start? When does the studying start? When does the studying start? It already started. It never ends. I mean, if you want to know the truth, right? And so if you want to get into the hardcore, CISSP, let's get to the topics right away. We've already told you where that stuff is. I mean, there's nothing holding you back from doing that. The things that you might be missing out on if all you're trying to do is pass the exam, study and pass the exam, is you'll miss out on the wisdom. You'll miss out on the life experiences. And there's only two ways you're going to get wisdom. You can get wisdom through painful experience, or you can get wisdom from listening to it from somebody else. So
I term that as you can pay for it or you can receive it. So if you pay for it, you're going through the pain and you're paying for it. You're learning from your mistakes. You're learning trial by fire,
right.
or you can learn from the experiences of others. And I'm a big one for that. Like, I love to learn from the experiences of others, but you will all have to pay trial by fire at some point or another.
Well, it depends. I mean, you can, if you want to innovate, for sure, if you want to do things that other people haven't done. Because I think another thing that I've seen a couple of things come up in the chat. One was imposter syndrome. You know, that's a very common thing in this industry. And I've never really, and there's nothing special about me. I just have never suffered from imposter syndrome. And the reason why I don't, I think, is because I don't compare myself to anything else. I'm different. I'm unique. I focus on me. I try to be the best version of me I possibly can be. I know that I'm not ever going to be the best CISO. I know that I'm never going to be the best CEO. I know that I'm never going to be the best dad, because how would you measure that shit anyway? But one thing I'm always guaranteed to be the best at is the best me. There's never going to be another me. So that's what I focus on. And that's how I don't deal with imposter syndrome.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I want to speak on imposter syndrome because I'm going through it right now. Quite literally, when looking at the other people in this Zoom meeting with me and going like, holy cow, look at the experience behind you guys, where I'm at 3.5 years in information security at this point. And going, shoot, man, like I'm the kid in the room at this point, besides the gray hair. So I can understand that. I totally know that. And I feel like I'm the least common denominator among this group. But I also know that I bring a different perspective to it as well. And so I can add that, but still, it's still there.
Right.
I'm not going to lie. I didn't sleep well last night because I was nervous going into this.
Right.
So, that's just to say I can
And the truth is, man, you wouldn't be here if you weren't providing value. Right. None of us would be here, because one of the other of us would kick us out, I hope, and I'm looking forward to you guys kicking me out so I can eat more food and stuff. But
I can do for you.
Yeah. But there's that imposter syndrome thing. And I think, we can give you tips and tricks on how to, how we deal with it, how we avoid it. But that's the whole point of switching the content this year, was to share the wisdomy stuff here. Right. You're going to find a whole bunch of things in the book, and we're going to have opinions on that. Some of us may outright claim that what's in the book is wrong, but it's based on our own experience. That doesn't mean, and so now you got two kind of learning tracks going on here. You got the learning track for passing the CISSP. For passing the CISSP, you have to go with what ISC squared says and what the book says. Then you've got this other learning track, which is like this experiential wisdomy learning track, which you can't get from a book. Well, maybe you can, but that's the part that I think you'll find value, with us sharing our experiences. I've broken more shit over my career than I fixed by far. But I've also learned that my best way to learn is to break something and put it back together again. So the intent behind the breaking something is what made me good or bad, I think. If my intent was to cause destruction, cause damage, to hurt other people, to take advantage of other people, that makes me an enemy. But if my intent is to learn how this works so that I can be better, at my job, because I think another thing that a lot of people struggle with nowadays is they're afraid to fail. They're afraid to break things. That didn't happen when I started in this industry 30 years ago. There wasn't anybody afraid to break things. It was fun to break things. And I think we've lost a little bit of that. And so I saw another question in the exam. How did I, prepare for the CISSP exam, back when I took it? I broke things. I mean, these are the days when you didn't have Google. I couldn't Google something, because there was no, I mean, when I started in this career, I could when I was going for my CISSP, but there was no Google. There was no, when you broke something, you actually had to take it apart and put it back together again.
Well, so on that AI piece, right? So like, using it for the industry, right? Like some students are going to do this. There's been a big trend that I've noticed of, folks using the AIs as a learning companion, right? And a training companion. And so sometimes the information is not accurate, right? You got to fact check what comes out of the system. You cannot blindly trust anything coming out of the system. That would be foolhardy. Having said that, more often than not, it does tend to be fairly accurate. And so far, under some testing on certain subjects, it does do pretty good. But as always, human in the loop, please. Always keep a human in the loop.
Right. Yeah. So, and if you didn't want to if you didn't want to do the live mentor sessions and just do the content, if that's your objective is to only take the exam and prepare for that, there's nothing wrong with that. You will miss out on the contest though, because I'm going to create a cool ass contest.
Plus the
brain is
additional resources.
fast.
We throw so many new things out here. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm throwing into the chat. Folks are going, so what are different resources? There are so many out there. Please share your resources. Evan,
Mhm.
I wanted to pick up on a point you brought up a little bit too, is about ethics. We all adhere to the ISC2 code of ethics, and there's many others. Basically, if you're going to break something, make sure it's something you own, something you can fix. You own it if you break it. But we do take ethics very seriously as part of the community. I've known folks who have tried to plagiarize, publish things as their own, and they've been called out very publicly, and it ain't pretty. Plus, if you're over reliant, we're talking about AI, and I've been telling my students, so I teach as a professor, I've been doing it for 15 years, can I just go and use AI in a job interview? Sure, bring your phone and you're typing away and you have a slow response. Reason why you need to know this stuff is so when you're in that interview, someone asks you, so what is the TCP IP three-way handshake? You can answer, I was waiting for Evan to say it. Sin, Sinak,
Sinak back. Sinak back.
without even thinking.
I was reading over here. Sorry.
Your stuff. So that's what we're trying to prep you for.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
And to add to that, understand how generative AI works, right? Generative AI isn't going to always give you the right answer. It's making the assumption that the words in the order that they're providing it to you would be the statistically best response for what you're asking it. So based on what it was trained with is what it will give the responses with. And because you can't plagiarize the books, it has to go out and get content that's out on the internet or somewhere else.
Yeah. I want to address another thing too, that, intimidation, I think sometimes, a lot of times it's unintentional because you hit on it a little bit, Brian, when you said, imposter syndrome, it can feel intimidating, sometimes I think to be, when people are talking about things that you don't understand what they're saying, or, we're using acronyms, you're taking things for granted. Because we do that a lot in this industry. And I think a lot of times we don't even realize we do it. We do a lot of posturing in this industry. And it does end up sometimes feeling intimidating to some people. A lot of that might be in your head, because at least from this group, that would never be the intention. The intention would never to intimidate you, to make you feel uncomfortable, to make you feel like you're not good enough. The fact of the matter is you are good enough. The fact of the matter is you're here because you're going to provide value to this industry. You know what I mean? You bring a different perspective to this industry that I don't have, that Ron doesn't have, that nobody else has but you, right? And if you're going to solve these difficult problems in our industry, we need as many perspectives as possible. So for me anyway, and I won't speak for these other guys here, if I do come off like I'm ego serving or intimidating or whatever, feel free to tell me, because sometimes I don't know that. You know what I mean? I think to get the most out of this, don't let this voice in your head tell you you're not good enough, or tell you, you know, you won't be able to pass the exam, any of that shit, because it's all shit. Sorry, that's kind of my non-politically correct preaching there. Because I've seen that a lot, you know, Brian, like what you're saying, like it can feel like that sometimes. And I don't know, how do you deal with it? What advice do you have?
So before I get into advice, I do want to address, so imposter syndrome, for those who aren't familiar with the term, is basically feeling like you don't belong, or that you're not right for a position, or that's the basic of imposter syndrome, that you're an imposter here in this area. Honestly, it's the way that I deal with it, in which I made a big jump when I moved over to information security. I was an IT guy, and one of the big things that drove me towards information security is being at an MSP and saying, like, we're not doing things right. I had a situation come up where I realized that half of a company or more of people had domain admin access and Active Directory. And then when I went, I said, we're not doing this, we're changing this. The company I worked for said, they're okay with it, we're not changing anything. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. This isn't right. We need to do something. Yes, it's going to cost us money, you know, or time on our end, but we need to fix this because something bad's going to happen. And I'm not going to be responsible for that ultimately. And I CYA'd myself and got that in an email chain saying that, you know, I brought it up to them and they said, no, we're not doing anything. But at the same time, that's really what drove me. At that point was right around I got my CISSP. And so I was really like, dude, you guys aren't doing this right. But I think that the dealing with it aspect of it is that taking a deep breath, honestly, and being like, hey, man, I know what I'm talking about. I know the outline, and sometimes it's being the quiet kid in the room and listening to what other people say, and building on that. The more exposure you get to these topics, the more you will recognize them. And even coming in at FR Secure, I mean, some of the stuff that I was doing at that point in time was very new to me. And I had some really good mentors at FR Secure that were bringing me in and being like, when I had questions, they were there to help me out with it. And also having a group of people around you to help you is a big part of that as well. Say, for instance, I know that next week when we do our next session, I'm going to be much more comfortable with it. I'm going to sleep really well on Tuesday night, knowing that coming into it, that I've had the experience, I've gone through it before, and now I know what to do now that I'm on the other side of it as well. But
Good point.
And that might be just me. I mean, I tend to be a nervous person as it is. I tend to be a planner. I overthink things. And I don't tend to just go like, okay, I'm going to go see what happens. I'm going to do this. But that's, you know, a personal thing I do. I know that I do that. And I also know that when I'm trying to sleep and I can't, like, how to, you know, do breathing exercises to get myself to sleep better because I've done that so many times. But just sometimes I have to, though, just go with the flow.
Right.
And I had this a report that I was working on last week, and I was sitting there for a half hour just with like one line of this report sitting there, going like, how am I going to do this? I've never written one of these reports before. It's something that a client had asked me for, and I wanted to give it them as part of that engagement I was working on. And I'm like, after a half hour of just having nothing, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to start writing and see what happens. And less than a half hour later, I had the report. And when I gave it to one of my coworkers who was helping me out on this engagement, and he's like, "Damn, this is a good report." Like, he's like, "Cool." But I wasn't believing in myself being able to do it at that point in time until luckily I got the validation when I was done. But I put myself out there, and I was uncomfortable with it, and now I've grown from it. Now we're going to be using that report as a template for some other stuff that we're doing. So, you know, I guess that's a whole lot to say is just sometimes putting yourself out there, it is tough. But it also, you know, you need to do that to grow yourself. You need to challenge yourself, and move along with it.
Yeah, that's true, man. I mean, growth is uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. You know, I had a wise person earlier in my career who told me comfort was an idol. You know, if you're comfortable, you should be more concerned about being comfortable too often than, you know, being stressed or, you know, being uncomfortable. Because it's those times when you're uncomfortable, those are opportunities. You know, you're uncomfortable for a reason. You know, you're in a situation, a position, and you know, that you've never been in before, oftentimes, right? And you have to figure out how to deal with it. Because I don't think I was always really good at flying by. Maybe I was always good at flying by the seat of my pants. Because I think I've always done it, but I don't know. It's interesting when people share their other perspectives, because from an information security leadership perspective, right? The reason why this stuff is really important is the people that I'm serving, I need to understand how they operate. They may not operate the same way I do. You know what I mean? If you take executive management or, you know, the board of directors, they probably don't see the world the same way I do. They probably don't speak the same language I do. You know, so really being observant, trying to hear and listen and look for those tips and tricks on what motivates this person, you know, what makes them, I've been accused a lot of times as a CISO of social engineering the organization. And it's like, that's exactly what I'm doing. You know, I'm glad you noticed that. How am I doing? Am I doing a good job or not?
Social
You know,
engineering and leadership are two sides of the same coin, or opposite
yeah,
side, whatever that analogy is. Where if you read How to Win Friends and Influence People, the age-old book from Dale Carnegie, it's a great human hacking book. You know, use people's names, how to build rapport with folks, how to be likable. You'll read about, and we'll talk about social engineering in a future session, but that is a lot of what we need
right.
for influence, for leadership. So learn it, and not only how can I pass the exam, but how can I use it IRL in real life?
Yeah. I mean, because you can hack the shit out of things, but if nobody's going to change because you know what I mean? It's like you have to have that human piece to go along with it to make the positive changes you're looking for in the organization. So yeah, that's good stuff. What else we got, man? Oh, what is the name of the book? Oh, you got to repeat the name of the book.
Oh, How to Win Friends and Influence People?
How to who,
Age-old
what, and
Dale
what?
Carnegie.
Do people still read?
Yes.
Oh shit.
Audiobook.
Yeah.
Yeah, audiobooks and wait for the movie.
So
Watch the movie Sneakers and count all the social engineering attacks.
Right. And if they're not going to make a movie out of the book won't worth reading anyway.
A lot of old books,
I
but
don't know. Some of the best books I've ever read have never been made into movies. Sorry, that's
Yeah.
it. We can have a book discussion another time.
Did you read my book?
I did.
There's no movie.
yet.
There's not
I
even
was
an
about to
audiobook
say,
out of it.
yeah, seriously. I got an AI for that.
Yeah, I'm right in the middle of writing the update. Here's an interesting question. What is a book that you're currently reading? Are you currently reading a book?
I am. I just started. So I just finished Damon by Daniel Suarez. And then Freedom is the book after that, and I just started it like quite literally today. So it's a really good book. It goes into a lot of hacking and that sort of thing. Very sort of sci-fi-ish in a way as well in parts of it. So, but it's quite entertaining. That's my most recent.
Sci-fi-ish. How about you,
Yeah.
Ron? Are you reading a book?
In between books right now, but next week is
You're a tweener.
RSAC where I usually pick up like 4 or 5. So
All right. How about you, Mr. Foulon? How to operate the mute button. That's a book for you.
Author. I've been reading The Trusted Advisor. And the author of that is
Meister.
yes, David Meister, Charles Green, and Robert Galliford. The reason that I like that book, one, it was a course I'm taking on the side, but it really focuses on how you pivot away from the technical stuff that we do and how you can offer the business advice or the leader advice that helps them solve their problem. And it doesn't always tie into the technical because you have to understand the situation that you're in, the implications of their actions, and how to advise them. And sometimes you're advising them and not the business, and sometimes you're advising the business, not them. So
Somebody just wrote Start With Why. It's one of my favorite books of all time.
yes, that was a good book too. Yes.
Simon Sinek. That's a great book. I'm reading The 5 a.m. Club.
Oh, that's another good one.
Yeah. It's yeah, I'm like, damn. All right. So I'm gonna try it. Try the things in the 5 a.m. Club. It's a good book.
4 Hour Work Week was another good book focused around analyzing, automating, and really prioritizing what you do to make the most of your time.
Got it. All right. Well, so we might want to start wrapping it up, but we can keep going. The point for this particular live mentor session was just what it was, right? We had an introduction. We didn't really get into the content. And then it was for us to get to know us a little bit. We're going to be teaching and we're going to be here again. I think what you'll see in the next live mentor session is discussion about the topic, right? About the content, because there really wasn't any lecture so far, which will be fun because I'm really excited to hear, I've got my own experiences in this stuff, but I already know those damn experiences. I love hearing what your experiences are. Like when I tried this is what happened to me, like governance. I love governance because to me, it's a big game. It's a game. When you talk about social engineering and organization, when I approach it like a game, it's a lot of fun, right? And your policies, those documents, right? Whether it be policy, standards, guidelines, procedures, those are all rules for the game. And I want to use those rules for the game to win. And what's winning? Well, winning isn't risk elimination. Winning isn't not having breaches. Winning is risk management. So what does risk management look like? And if you're the information security, you get to kind of influence that. We started this thing out tonight with a lot of people, over the years, you've had a lot of people, trying to get into the industry or they're newer into the industry. And the one thing that they always, not always, but consistently people want to be in this industry is a CISO. And I always give them the same answer. Why? Right? That's going to be really important. Purpose should drive your journey through this industry, not money. You can make more money in other industries, trust me, or playing on the other side. But the other thing is, do you know what a CISO does? What does a CISO do? And it's crazy over the years. Now that I play more coach, I've asked the same question from hundreds of CISOs. What do you do? And you need to explain it to me, not like you're talking to me, like you're talking to my wife. somebody who doesn't speak this language. I speak this language. I've been in this industry for so damn long. So explain it like you're explaining it to her. And number one, there's never the same answer. Number two, it's always way longer than it needs to be. Going back to this concept of complexity being the worst enemy of information security, logic would then tell you that simplicity at least has to be a friend, if not your best friend. So what does a CISO do? What if I told you it was two things? That's what a CISO does. You consult the business to make good information security risk decisions, and then you implement those risk decisions. That's what you do. There's a whole shitload of stuff that goes underneath that. But when you simplify what a CISO does, you don't make the risk decisions. You consult the organization to make those risk decisions. If they're making poor information security risk decisions, don't you sort of have to ask yourself, maybe I'm not a good consultant? I mean, if you're playing the game, right? The game is for you to make these good information security risk decisions, and you're not making good information security risk decisions. Well, then maybe I'm not playing the game well. Maybe I'm not the A player I think I was. Maybe I need to shift. Maybe I need to understand what actually motivates these executives or, this board of directors. But anyway, that's where we go next. We go into the governance piece, right? We're going to hit chapter 1, hit chapter 2 of the book. I like that stuff because I'm not a rules guy. I don't know if you can tell with the tattoos. We can go into my jail times way in the past, pre-CISSP, because that would be a violation of my agreement with the ethics thing. But we can talk about all that stuff. I'm not a rules guy, but I am a game guy. I love setting up information security like it's a game. The rules for the game have to be documented. The rules for the game have to be set up to win. And again, the win is the risk management, not the risk elimination. So anyway, that'll be fun.
Evan, before you stray away from that, I wanted to say risk is both positive and negative. So
I disagree with this though, man.
No,
I disagree with this.
We're gonna have to argue about that one then.
Yeah, because risk is always a negative outcome. You're talking about benefits. Benefits isn't risk. It's a different thing.
You make your decision based on you make your risk decision based on a positive or negative outcome. It could have a positive outcome, it could have a negative outcome, but you make your calculated decision.
There's no positive outcome with risk.
Well, that's different.
We're going to have to, I love this, by the way, because it's going to be a respectful discussion, not now, but let's come back to that, because I'd love to hear your perspective. Because what we're going to find out, because I've had this before, and you probably have too, I think what we're going to find out is we're both saying the same things. We're just attaching a word to mean different things, which is, you're going to find that all the time as a CISO too, right? And it's not, the fact of the matter, you don't have to be right in the job, but you have to get, like information security and cybersecurity. Are they the same thing? No, they're not the same thing. However, if who I'm working for as their CISO, if they are hell-bent on cybersecurity is the same as information security, I need to know that if I'm going to set up the game right. So the same thing with like the risk. My belief is that risk is always based on a negative outcome, yet let's say you're the CEO of the organization or the board member, and risk has a positive and negative outcome. Well, then I better adjust, because chances are not really good that I'm going to change your mind. So, you know what I mean? I love this kind of discussion, because I think we spend so much time in this industry fighting over who's right versus let's accommodate this. Let's figure out a way to work this into the game.
Well, that ties in perfectly with speak the language of your audience. Like you said earlier, describe it to like you're talking to my wife. If the person that's across the table from you does not understand the terminologies that you're using, you have to pivot the words that you're using to match their language, their understanding, their mental models, their frameworks, and to be able to describe the same concepts to them.
Right. Yeah. but that's the kind of wisdom that I think is important to share. Because there's been lots of times when I've been consulting, talk about imposter syndrome. I mean, you would think that you would have it because it's like I'm in a room right now with people that make a lot of money and they could sue me for looking at them funny. I mean, it's just weird. And there's a lot of things they'll say that I'll disagree with. And so I think we've been kind of programmed a lot, especially nowadays, that I have to force you to get on board with what I'm doing versus why don't we adjust and figure out what the end game is here? Because you're going to run into that a lot in the real world where you have a different definition of risk than I do. You have a different definition maybe of information security than I do. And, a good professional can figure out how to play that game. I like it. Christoph, you bring a lot of value to this table.
I come just for the conversation.
I know, it makes us all better, doesn't it?
All about teamwork. We're better together. Same
right.
thing with folks online watching the chat. Love it when others answer questions. It's not always up to us to answer the questions. Heck, we don't even know the answer.
Zero trust.
Yes,
Nice.
and about zero trust. We'll talk about that. Basically, don't trust nothing. Don't trust a single source. Always confirm identity. Like, how do we know you're still really Evan Francine and you're not a deep fake?
Oh, Ryan already perfected that.
That's right. That's right. All right. So we're going to see you next week. So 2 things. I'll get my video done. Who does the video after that? Is that Brad? Or is that Chris?
No, the 2 sessions with you, and then there's me, Ryan, and then me again.
Okay. So I need to get that done. And then I'm going to create this contest. It's going to be fun. I promise. I mean, for me, it will be. And, if it's not fun for you, then sorry. I think it'll be fun though. We'll make it like, I'll put some OSINT challenges in there. For people who don't know what OSINT is, that's open source intelligence gathering. Looking for things, clues to figure out things, we'll make it, I think, fun. I'll drop some clues, some Easter eggs somewhere here and there, and then we'll accumulate points. And the person who has the most points at the end of this contest wins.
What are the rules to this game?
I don't know yet.
He hasn't made them up yet.
No, not yet. But it's coming. It's going to be awesome.
I do want to note that there was a question about homework. So homework, read the book. And then when the new the new record session hits, I will make an announcement in Discord saying, hey, it's there, so that everybody will know. And watch the live session, or watch that before the next live session, which is in a week from now. That's the homework.
My mouth is dry. I need more water.
I need food.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Watch out for the recording. We're going to be posting that. You'll put that on Thinkific, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Love you guys. Take care. The stream has ended.
Okay.